Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm excited to talk about the movie Watcher today. This is a movie I was looking forward to, mostly because I saw that it was produced by Shudder, but also because Micah Monroe was in it, and she has been great in everything I've seen her in. Wish she would get more work. I really like her in Hot Summer Nights, and also the movie that I'm sure most people know her from, which is It Follows. So I was looking forward to this movie. Went and saw it this morning. Really, really liked it. Let's talk about it. So the story in Watcher is actually rather simple. It follows Julia, who is played by Micah Monroe, who moves to Bucharest with her husband Francis, and they have a little nosy neighbor across the street, a guy that keeps looking in the window, keeps looking at Julia. She gets a little bit freaked out. And what's really cool is, since they're moving to Bucharest and stuff, she doesn't really speak Romanian too much, but her husband Francis does. So she's trying to learn the language, but she kind of feels like a fish out of water. She feels like she doesn't necessarily belong because when she's talking to people, she's having to, talk in English, and then her husband's having to translate it Romanian to other people, and then vice versa back to herself. So there could some of the messages she's trying to relay could get lost. But what's really cool is the movie never actually has subtitles. So if she doesn't know what's being said, us as the audience members are in the exact same boat, and I really like that because it puts us in the shoes of our character Julia, and it just makes her it makes us feel for her even more. And this movie, I really liked it. It's really a slow burn. It's an hour and 31 minutes, and it probably takes, I think, until about an hour and 15-minute mark for that slow burn to really pop off. But that's not to say that everything before that hour and 15 mark isn't good or anything. It's great. I really did enjoy this movie. But I always have to warn people about slow burn movies because sometimes people say, "Oh, look, it's a horror movie or a thriller movie. Let's go watch it." And they go to the theater and then they're like, "Oh, dude, that was like nothing. It was just slow." And then they complain about it. So I always like to let people know, "Hey, listen, it's a slow burn, but it's done really, really well." Micah Monroe knocked it out of the park though. She was great as Julia in this movie. She really was really fantastic. That whole fish out of water aspect where we kind of were feeling for her and stuff, she plays it off really, really well, and we really believe that all the stuff that she's going through because when you're gonna have a stalker or somebody following you, it's gonna do mind games to you. I mean, I've never had to have to worry about that, but I've had some friends and stuff before that have had like similar issues, so I get that aspect. But just there's parts of this movie where she's looking over her shoulder, and us as the audience is like, okay, what exactly is gonna be over her shoulder? And then there's moments where she's just walking around the city and she's not worried about whatever's going on behind her, but us as the audience members, we're kind of like, maybe you should turn around because maybe that guy with the backpack is suspicious. That guy looks a little suspicious. So you're constantly on edge, and that's one thing about this movie I really like is even though it is a slow burn, it's really good with the tension, and you're constantly on edge, just waiting for what's actually going to happen next. And Chloe Okuna directed this movie, and I think she did a fantastic job from just whether it's framing shots, just the way she directed actors and everything, because just kind of sitting back because there's a lot of movies out there that involve like people like following or watching people. I remember growing up, I would go on demand, and there was this thing, I don't even know if it's still around. It was called FearNet, and lots of horror stuff on there. And I feel like a good quarter of all their horror movies was like somebody like being stalked and stuff. But this movie's different because we really feel for our main character Julia, and we're basically in the same boat as her because unless you know Romanian already going into this movie, you're not going to understand the language. You feel like you're in a place that you don't know, and then you add that with the fact that you're being watched, you're being followed. It's creepy, and it's creepy, and the movie does a great job. And Micah Monroe did a really great job selling it. So I really really enjoy my time watching this movie in the theater. It's a really good theater going experience. And to talk about the music and just the sound quality of this movie, because when it comes to thrillers and horror movies, sound is a big aspect. And what I really liked about this movie is it's able to be freaky and scary. Although I shouldn't overplay those words too much because it's not necessarily really a horror movie. It's much more of a thriller, but there's still like freaky aspects, and it's able to have those aspects without having to use like dramatic music to get that. The movie relies a lot on sound to the point where people's footsteps, maybe a glass breaks somewhere, and it kind of sounds like that. And then it's just completely quiet. There's like really no music. But when music is used in this movie, it's used rather effectively. And so this movie is kind of, to me, this movie is an example of a movie being simple but really effective. And you know what they say, the last thing you remember about a movie is the ending. If the ending sucks, a lot of times it can really, put you off about a movie. And that's one thing Watcher does really well is it ends really well. That slow burn, probably because a movie's about an hour 31 minutes long. When that slow burn finally reaches, I want to say it's about an hour and 15 minutes into the movie when it finally pops off. It's great. And the movie ends and I'm like, dude, that was absolutely awesome. So the movie had a great ending. It all paid off because that's one thing that slow burn movies can sometimes struggle with. It's a slow burn, and then maybe what we're slow burning towards doesn't work off, but it does in this movie. Watcher was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed this movie. If you're a fan of thrillers or horror movies, I definitely recommend watching it in the theaters. It's amazing. And if any of you have seen Watcher, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below. And like always, I hope to see you back in my next review.